Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers show brought to you by betonline.ag. The NFL playoff matchups are set. Our beloved Steelers are out of the playoffs, but still a lot to discuss because we know where they're going to be drafting in the 2023 draft come April. A lot to place bets on from an NFL standpoint. Head to betonline.ag. They'll take care of any of your gambling needs.
365, 24/7, whatever sport you want to bet on, make sure y'all go to betonline.ag.
Use the promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers show on the Bleav Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, Pittsburgh Steelers scout, two-time Super Bowl champion and 12-year veteran of the team, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, Steelers finished with a winning record after being left for dead earlier this season at 2-6. They finish above 500, but just short of the playoffs. They win 4 straight to finish out the season, a 28-14 win over the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. It's a bittersweet feeling this morning, my man. And I'm just so conflicted, Ike, because from a big picture standpoint, I like the way that the Steelers are finishing the season, but it leaves a bitter taste on my mouth to say, hey, the season is now over. The Steelers miss out on the playoffs.
Yeah, it's tough. Like you say, Mark, bittersweet. Coach T do go over 500 with the 9-8 record. The Pittsburgh Steelers came up short, came up with Jets. Field goal, touchdown short from winning against Miami, but Pittsburgh put themselves in that situation. At the same time, though, how do you not be proud of a 2-6 to be 9-8? A Kenny Pickett, a TJ Watt effect coming back, a lot of young guys, just grooming and growing throughout the season, and the George Pickens. So yeah, Najee finally running like Najee, a Jalen Warren, your second running back, coming and doing this thing as a running back, second on the depth chart. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, you got a lot to be proud of this year. Of course, Pittsburgh fell short until making the playoffs, Mark, but they didn't fall short of these young guys grooming and growing throughout the season.
From a big picture standpoint, I'm going to start there before we get into the specifics of the game and then all of the playoff matchups. The Steelers have a guy in Kenny Pickett that you can build around for the foreseeable future. And they have a quarterback that you need to develop because, Ike, I look at all 7 AFC playoff teams this season. All of them have first-round draft picks at the quarterback position. Now, the NFC is a completely different story, but we talked about how the Steelers need to develop someone at the quarterback position. They have someone in Kenny Pickett who, in these last 3 games, Ike, when the Steelers needed it to drive down the field and they needed a score, he delivered time and time and time again. We saw that development, that maturity when he first started out, a lot of interceptions, a lot of turnovers, and he understood when to take his chances late in the season. And the development, even as a rookie, to me was impressive. And from a big picture standpoint, that's what I'm going to focus on into this offseason because finishing 9-8, yes, you want to make the playoffs. Yes, it's bittersweet. But had the Steelers gotten in a first-round matchup against a Buffalo Bills team that I think is going to go on a Super Bowl run, I'm just going to say this. Of course you want to get in, but I don't want to play this Buffalo team that's playing inspired football for Damar Hamlin. So from a big picture standpoint, I'm okay with where the Steelers finished this season. Again, it's bittersweet. You want to be in the tournament because anything can happen. You were on the 05 team, the first 6 seed ever to win a Super Bowl back when they had 6 teams. But I like the way that the Steelers finished this season because you were 2-6. You were 3-7 on Thanksgiving Day, Ike. And if you'd have told me weeks ago that this team would finish above 500, I'd have called you crazy.
Yeah, Coach T, the magician, he always finding a way. Yeah. He always, towards the back half of the season, get his troops riled up to make a push. That's just in Coach T DNA. But now you got a young team. You got a Hall of Famer, Big Ben. He just retired. Last year, you drafted the quarterback in Kenny Pickett. You really don't know what you're drafting into the season. During the season, we always saw the spunk between him and Mitchell Trubisky. You know, they was going in and out the first couple of games, but you just saw like the little magic. You saw the extra energy. You saw the little flair. You saw the little pizzazz that Kenny Pickett, when he came into that huddle. You saw a little bounce in everybody's step when Kenny Pickett came into that huddle. You saw a few plays. Of course, he made some bad plays, but that was expected. Going down and playing Miami, I think that changed the Pittsburgh Steelers mindset. I remember when Coach T was walking off the field with Kenny Pickett, he said, man, it's going to be better in brighter days. And that stuck with me, so I know that stuck with Kenny. So that just told Kenny, like, okay, I got a head coach who's really behind me throughout all these struggles I'm going through. And we saw the back half of the Pittsburgh Steelers in that offense. That offense wound up doing whatever they need to do. If I needed a last drive, who I call on Kenny Pickett. If I need a first down or 1 yard, who I call on Najee. If I need a big play, and we've been talking about this guy, he's different on the offensive side than George Pickens, who I call on. I call on George Pickens. So you got a lot of young, good talent for the Pittsburgh Steelers who they can build around. You got a tight end, you got a quarterback, you got a running back, and you got a soon-to-be star receiver in George Pickens on the offensive side.
All right, do you want to go the specifics of Sunday's game against the Browns, or you want to go from a big picture standpoint in terms of where we go right now? Because I do want to discuss both, but choose a direction and I'll take off.
Let's go big picture.
Okay. I think the question that you have to ask yourself is, do you want Matt Canada back as offensive coordinator next season? Now, I do think that this team was better on the back half of the season. Najee Harris was definitely better, and the offensive line was better too, because this team could run the ball in the back half of the season. You mentioned Jaylen Warren. That was one of the big question marks I had going into this season, was who can be the Robin to Najee's Batman? That void seems to be filled. But when I see that this team struggles to score points consistently, Ike, and I look at a few stats, and I can point to many of them, but the Steelers defense led the league in interceptions this season, meaning you're flipping the field, you're putting your offense in a good position to score, and you're still struggling to score points from an offensive standpoint. That's a problem. Red zone efficiency, that's a problem. Deontay Johnson not scoring a touchdown this season, and they flashed the stat during the game of most receptions in a season with the receiver not getting into the paint, not scoring. That's an issue. Also, whoever the offensive coordinator is next season, Ike, you've got to get George Pickens 10 touches or targets every single game minimum, because I listen to you each week saying how special he is, even as a rookie. And I listen to former player Rodney Harrison, a Hall of Fame player, comparing George Pickens to Randy Moss. And I'm not saying George Pickens is Randy Moss, but I'm listening to people who have been in and around the league for decades, with decades of experience, talking about how special he is. The offense has to get better next season. That's not all on the offensive coordinator. For me, probably the biggest need in the draft, at least in my opinion, this is just my 2 cents worth, is the offensive line. But that's the question that you're going to have to ask is, which guys do you want to retain are coming back? Which personnel are coming back? Which coaching staff you want to come back? But here's the thing too. If you want to replace Matt Canada as your offensive coordinator, Ike, because this is what a lot of fans are talking about, this is where Mike Tomlin's a defensive coach. And if you have success with an offensive coordinator, say in year 2 or 3 with Kenny Pickett, another team is going to want to poach that offensive coordinator. So it's finding that balance. And it's also, you need to develop continuity with a young quarterback, because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks ruined, Ike, when you try to rip the Band-Aid off, and you're trying to rip the Band-Aid off when you're putting a Band-Aid back on to cover a flesh wound. And what I mean by that is, if you just say, let's bring in a new offensive coordinator, and then it doesn't work again next year, and then let's bring another offensive coordinator, and it doesn't work the following year, you need to develop that offensive continuity as Kenny Pickett develops and grows as a young quarterback in this league.
Yeah, so I was hard on Matt Canada. Matt Canada worked his way back, and why would you let him go? Matt Canada wound up creating points, wound up getting George Pickens the ball. So why would you let Matt Canada go? Matt Canada wound up finding a way with Fairmouth as a tight end. So why would you let Matt Canada go? Matt Canada just found ways to win. When it was time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the offense to score, Matt Canada found the way. When you want to talk about the rotation between Najee and Warren at the running back, Matt Canada found the way. When you want to talk about just believing in your offensive line because they didn't start good at the beginning of the season, but they finished well, Matt Canada found the way. When you want to talk about, okay, do y'all see the success as a rookie quarterback in Kenny Pickett from my play calling from the beginning to the end, Matt Canada found a way. So, yeah, I think Matt Canada gave himself a lifeline. We will see what happens in the offseason. But the way the Pittsburgh Steelers offense finished throughout that season, Mark, they was pretty damn good. And just to go through everything Matt Canada had to go through, having a Hall of Fame quarterback, really isn't athletic towards the back end of his career, not able to move, his mobility, to having a guy with some mobility, a young quarterback who played 4 years in college. And I think that helped out a lot of Kenny Pickett, a young quarterback who knows that Acrisure, Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium. So it was home for him. And I think Matt Canada finally settled himself down and understanding what he needed to do and understanding that he needed to get the ball to certain people at certain times in the game. I saw George Pickens go from the outside to the slot receiver. So that showed me right there Matt Canada is finding a way. I saw some of them jet sweeps turns into jet sweeps, double reverses. Matt Canada found the way. I don't know if he talked to Najee, but Najee, stick your foot in the ground. You 235 pounds plus. Let's get these 2 and 3 yards. Matt Canada found the way. So, yeah, I was hard on Matt Canada. Mentally, I was hard on him. But just seeing how the growth and development, not only with Kenny Pickett, but just that whole offense. They put up 28 points yesterday against the Cleveland Browns team who really wanted to knock the Pittsburgh Steelers out of playoff contention. They didn't, but the Jets helped that, of course. But, yeah, you just got to sit back and think, do I want to keep getting Kenny Pickett offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator? No. Do I like the growth and development of Kenny Pickett from the first to the second half? Yes, and you got to tip your hat off to Matt Canada on that point.
Few things here. 7-game stretch where the Steelers go 6-1 on the back half of the season. They didn't allow more than 20 points in any of those games. So I credit the defense for that. Fewest touchdown passes in the league as well. So again, there's improvement. Is it enough to save his job? But then I always also say this too, up front. The one thing I'd say about the Steelers line is that they played all 17 games together, and I do think that they got better throughout the duration of the season. But I don't think that they have elite talent. And I'm talking about nasty players, Ike. I'm talking about, and we talked about this a few shows ago, Pouncey up front, David DeCastro up front, all pro players, dudes that can maul people and are nasty at the line of scrimmage. That's what I'm talking about. So when I point to those stats, you can also point to Chris Boswell had his worst season since 2018. I think injuries is part of that, but that's another reality to where you're not putting up as much points because he wasn't as reliable this season. But the sum doesn't equal its parts. And if you found the right offensive coordinator, my point is this, I guess it's I'm kind of talking in circles here. If you're going to hire a new offensive coordinator to replace Matt Canada, you can't miss. And you need to have that offensive coordinator to be here for the next 5 to 10 years of Kenny Pickett's career, because I don't want to bring in a new offensive coordinator, Ike, and have this very same conversation with you a year from now.
The only OC I see that you can bring in is his former offensive coordinator in college. So I'm drawing a blank, and he was our quarterback coach when I played with Pittsburgh for a couple of years. That's the only real thing I can see. So you got a guy with familiarity with Kenny Pickett. You got a guy who knows the city, understands the city. Both was an OC in college for Kenny Pickett. Both was an OC, being a quarterback's coach in the NFL. So, yeah, that's the only thing I can really see when it comes down to bringing somebody else in for Kenny Pickett as far as offense coordinator. Other than that, I would just roll with Matt Canada.
Interesting, Ike. I don't think you'll be in the majority of that, of just people. Listen, I know Twitter's not always the greatest place to look, but I don't think you'd be in the majority in terms of how Steelers fans feel about this. But Ike, Mark Whipple is the coach that you're talking about.
Yeah, yes, Coach Mark Whipple, who coached and developed Kenny Pickett. I'm sure he asked Kenny Pickett to stay a year, and that year did help when it come down to being 4 years in college. But Coach Mark, I think, would be a perfect fit, not only for Kenny Pickett in the offense, but he just knows the city and understands exactly what that city wants, that organization wants, because he did coach with that organization. Just the tradition-wise, you got to be different to be OC in Pittsburgh. I think Coach Todd Haley said that last year. With Bruce Arians, Todd Haley, Winston Hunt, Coach Mark Whipple, you got to be tough-minded. You damn near got to have a defensive mentality from an offensive coordinator standpoint, just dealing with the people in the city of Pittsburgh, because all they pretty much know is success, 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 success. And who's going to take the blame? It's usually going to be the offensive coordinator. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of how good they did. I remember Big Ben threw for 5,000 yards at one point in time, and who was the person we blamed? It was the OC. I remember Ken Whisenhunt had a good running game wound up going to the Super Bowl. who was the downfall? It was Ken Whisenhunt. Todd Haley probably had Pittsburgh at their best. When you want to talk about a balanced offense, who was going to blame? It was Todd Haley. So it's just being an offensive coordinator in that city is tough. It's hard, and you got to have that mentality for it. And I think Matt Canada, throughout all the talk, what they've been saying on Matt Canada, throughout all what the players have been saying, the opposing defenses, what they've been saying about the Pittsburgh offense, same play, same play, same play. He just figured it out. He kept his cool. He didn't budge. He didn't waver. He didn't care. He said, man, I'm going to stick to this offense. I'll grow through the season. And you just saw that with the growth and development, again, not only with the offense, but with Kenny Pickett. And I'm not trying to be a fan favorite or a Twitter favorite, Mark. I'm just going off of what I see and what I think will help Pittsburgh Steelers grow and develop and be more exciting if they don't keep Matt Canada.
Yeah, I just look across the league, and I'm not saying Kenny Pickett is any of these players, but whether it's a Mitch Trubisky during his tenure in Chicago, whether it's Baker Mayfield, I could go to a lot of quarterbacks that have had some success early on and then have also struggled early on. And Ike, we've talked about this in years past where we say, okay, well, why is a young quarterback struggling? The first question you should ask is, who are his coaches? That's the first question that you should ask. And a lot of times, and I'm encouraging our listeners and our viewers to think smarter about this. Who are his coaches to help him develop and put a player in a position to succeed? That's a coach's job and responsibility. Now, I think that the Steelers were limited in what they could do given the talent that they have and that they're a very young team offensively too. And I said this at the start of the season, and I would say that this did happen. Where at the start of the year, the offense compared to the end of the year, I don't know if it was night and day, but I did see improvement.
So we always talk about, just in the football world, who's a truck and who's a trailer. And what you mean by truck, who can carry a team? Or do this guy need a supporting cast around him? Right now, Kenny Pickett, in my mind, he's on the verge of going from a trailer to a truck. So I think Kenny Pickett, at first he was a trailer, but he's moving into a truck. I want to talk about Pat Fairmouth at the tight end position. He's definitely a truck. He can block and he can catch. You want to talk about George Pickens as a rookie, regardless he's not playing or don't act and have the confidence better than any other rookie I know, especially coming to the NFL. He's a truck. You want to talk about Najee, who will probably get the torch passed to him as a leader. He's a truck. So you got enough trucks on the offensive side, or you got a guy at the main position, which is the quarterback position, moving over, transitioning over from that trailer to a truck. So, yeah, they got enough trucks on the offensive side. They just so happen to be super young, which is a good problem for the organization and Coach T.
I'm glad Kenny Pickett got as much experience as he did this season, Ike, because you look at the division, Joe Burrow's not going anywhere. We're going to see Lamar get paid this offseason. Who knows about Watson in the division? He didn't look very good, but maybe he could rekindle what we saw several years ago in terms of his on-field ability as a dynamic playmaker at the quarterback position. And again, all 7 AFC playoff teams, first-round quarterbacks. So you see the talent. And Pickett was the only first-rounder this year. And I look across the league. It wasn't Malik Willis starting for the Titans in the final 2 weeks of the season. It was Josh Dobbs. Desmond Ridder got a little bit of experience in Atlanta, but then, okay, the 2023 quarterback class is supposed to be, whether it's Stroud, whether it's Bryce Young, the kid from Kentucky, what have you, like Kenny Pickett now has almost a full season of starting experience, and we saw him get better and better each week. Not always linear, not always, okay, he was better from one week to next, but on the back half of the year compared to when he began starting in week 4, I thought he was much better. And he gets that experience now in a season where there weren't a lot of young rookie quarterbacks getting game experience this season, Ike. And so when the Steelers picked at 20 a year ago, he was there, they had to take him because the Steelers now have the 18th pick. And is that blue chip quarterback going to be there, whether it's one of those three guys that I mentioned or someone else coming out in this year's draft? And the answer that I would have is probably not. When the Steelers pick at, 17 this year, that pick of a blue chip stud first round quarterback is not going to be there, Ike.
Well, first of all, the situation got to be real good, or you got to be an outstanding quarterback, and you can't have any ceiling when it comes to the top 5 pick. And yeah, I think just traditionally we always say with these bad teams, you need a quarterback, you need a quarterback, you need a quarterback in the first round. And I don't think that's the answer, and that's the case for every scenario. I think if you get your offensive line, and I think if you get you a tight end, there's nothing wrong with getting a quarterback in the second or third round. If I'm a quarterback and I know I'm about to go high, I really don't want to go high. I want to go mid-round to the bottom because I want to go to a team who's on the verge of making the playoffs. If I'm mid-round in the first round, and definitely I'm going to, if I get drafted late, I'm going to a team who probably made the playoffs. So if I'm a quarterback, man, I just don't want to throw my career unless I have a general manager or a head coach who's all in building their team around me. Something like a Josh Allen, something like a Joe Burrow. But other than that, man, you got somebody like, I look at Kenny Pickett, he's right in between. I'm just talking about his style. He's right in between the Joe Burrow. He's not as cool and calm and collective in the pocket as Joe. That's just Joe's personality. But you look at Justin Herbert, he's athletic enough just like him. He just don't have his height. So when you look at Kenny Pickett, I think, yes, you did find the answer. When it comes down to drafting quarterbacks in the first round, high in the first round, you got to be a sensational quarterback. You got to be a generational talent. You got to be somebody who a team can build around. But you got to find and have that right general manager to understand and to know how to build around that quarterback. So, yeah, if I'm a quarterback coming out, it sounds good when it comes down to the money part, but I'm always looking at it.
Yeah, and Ike, Omar Khan getting Pickett with the 20th overall pick as well.
Back in. So if I'm a quarterback. I'm listening.
Sorry, I was saying Omar Khan with the 20th pick a year ago when they got Pickett. To me, now you can build around him on a rookie deal to where year 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to pick up his 5th-year option. The way that it's looking like right now, it's really promising if you're the Steelers. And if you can go 9-8 with a really young team, what could it be for 2023 and beyond to where you get back in contention of not just winning your division, but to say, this team's a real contender in the AFC. Those are the stakes right now. And personally, that really excites me, considering how this team finished the season.
Yeah, I mean, I still got 4 years to play with if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers when they want to come down to that quarterback situation. So I can really build around them. Right now I can just go into the draft and just go off for the best available instead of a need because of Kenny Pickett. When you're in different, if Pittsburgh would have finished the way they was looking in the beginning of the season, man, I had to go on the need coming down to this draft because Pittsburgh would have had a high draft pick. But to finish how they finished 9-8, and you're like mid first round, that's a good situation. So I'm definitely going on best available in my mind for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And really, that's the only way you want to draft. You always want to draft best available. And why? If somebody asks me, it's because, man, we win the football games. If I go off a need, that means I'm losing. People get fired. People go home early. And nobody likes that losing feeling, especially in the city of Pittsburgh. So, yeah, Kenny Pickett is the answer. Just to answer all your questions, you definitely have a franchise quarterback in Kenny Pickett.
That's what I would focus on if you're a Steelers fan, because, again, you're playing Buffalo if you get into the first round of the playoffs. Ike, I want to talk about yesterday's game a little bit. And go ahead, Ike.
Buffalo, Mark, they wasn't dominate as before in the beginning of the season, but what you do like about Buffalo is they're doing good on all 3 phases. So that's special team, offense, and defense. You take the two Tubs away off of special teams, it's a close game with Buffalo. Josh Allen hasn't been playing like the Josh Allen we always see, but he's been finding a way as well. I think Josh Allen might be second or third in the league in interceptions on the back half of the season. So, yeah, if Pittsburgh was to play Buffalo, I know at first it didn't look good at all, on that beating Pittsburgh took from the Buffalo Bills, but it wouldn't have surprised me if Pittsburgh would have came out with a W if they would have made the playoffs going against the Buffalo Bills.
Whatever Kool-Aid you're drinking this morning, Ike, whatever hooch you got in your cup, I want some.
I haven't even drunk nothing yet.
All right. Ike, yesterday's game against the Browns, I'm not usually critical of the referees, but they were terrible yesterday. And I wish you could give Mike Tomlin and the players truth serum. There were 3 plays to me that were just horrible. First one, Najee Harris scores a touchdown. Adam Archuleta is saying this multiple times during the broadcast that his knee didn't go down. He extends across the goal line. Few plays later, Air Najee, which is the best Najee, tries to go over the top, fumbles. The Steelers come away with no points. They get points on that. That 28-14 game is even a larger lead. So that's one. And Mike Tomlin should have challenged it instead of trying to rush to the line and running Kenny Pickett for a sneak. But hindsight's 20/20. That was number one. Number two, and this is me being completely objective, Larry Ogunjobi had a face mask penalty against Deshaun Watson. Point blank period should have been called. It was missed. That's number two. And number three, the roughing the passer penalty called on Cam Hayward when he's sacking Deshaun Watson. When we saw Watson's ability to scramble throughout the duration of this game, like Deshaun Watson's a big dude too. He's a ball carrier. How else do you want Cam Hayward to try to tackle a quarterback? And this play really cost the Steelers because they end up giving up a touchdown defensively. Those 3 plays, had they cost the Steelers in this game and had those plays cost the Steelers a shot at the playoffs, not to mention the horse collar penalty on Jalen Waddle in the Jets-Dolphins game. But at least in this Steelers-Browns game, Ike, those are 3 major missed calls that could have influenced the outcome of the game.
Yeah, that's tough. Luckily, the Pittsburgh Steelers did win this football game. But when it comes down to refereeing, that's a hard job, because you in the moment. And I know they're trying to call a perfect game now with the replay and all that good stuff. But, man, sometimes you just got to get to reality and understand we all human. So the Pittsburgh Steelers luckily did win the ball game. Now, if they was to lose the ball game, it would be a totally different story. And what the referees got to understand, you're playing with people's livelihood when it comes down to missing call. A lot of people get fired. In a majority of these situations, there is no second chance. Najee, if he was to fumble the ball, it'll be a different story. He's a first-round draft pick. He's going to get a second chance. Let that happen for Jaylen Warren, it might be a different story. So that's what I think, just going into the game from my standpoint when it comes to the referees, they got to understand you still are playing with a lot of people's livelihoods when it comes down to making this call. But on the flip side, for the referee, it's tough. Everything happens fast, under 3 seconds, and you got to be on site, and you damn near got to be perfect every time, and they're not human, so they're not going to be perfect.
It was funny, too. Like, I was on Twitter some during the game, and there were a lot of Browns fans that were mad that they didn't get Nick Chubb the ball more than 12 carries in the game. And the Browns also fired Joe Woods this morning, their defensive coordinator, to your point about keeping jobs and whatnot. But for me, it's like if you're a Browns fan, I would just be thrilled that Nick Chubb got out of that game uninjured for next season. Like, yeah. That's how I'm looking at it, to where, of course, I would want to say feed Nick Chubb, but I'd rather have a healthy Nick Chubb in 2023 than to say, hey, we'll give him the ball 30 times against a Steelers team in a game that really doesn't matter for Cleveland. And, oh, by the way, the fact that the Browns lost, they get a better draft pick anyway. So I'll be honest, I didn't really understand that criticism.
Yeah, it's all good. People are just going to talk just to talk. But Nick Chubb just asked King Henry. King Henry feels like Nick Chubb is the best running back, pure running back, just a running back in the game. We're not talking about a CMC, and that's Christian McCaffrey, a guy who can run and come out the backfield and catch the ball like an Alvin Kamara. But when you want to talk about an old school, hand me the ball out, wear this defense down through 4 quarters, that's Nick Chubb's all day.
All right, Ike, let's go to some playoff matchups because the field is set. And Saturday, we've got Seattle against San Francisco, Chargers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sunday, Dolphins at Bills, Giants at Vikings, Ravens at Bengals, and then Monday, Dallas at Cowboys. Let's keep it in the AFC, then we'll go to the NFC. What is the best AFC matchup in Wild Card Weekend, Ike?
No, name your first one again. You just named
Chargers and Jaguars is the first AFC matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Jags coming out with the win on this one. I think they just playing Sunshine, aka Trevor Lawrence. He playing out of his mind. You want to say there's two quarterbacks who've been playing hot since the Thanksgiving break, and that's been Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence. Looking like two totally different quarterbacks statistically, and they just finding ways to win. I think Trevor really figured it out. He really believes in his coach and his OC. He has a running back that he played college ball with, and Travis Etienne. And Travis Etienne, since he's been healthy, he's been running like a madman. You get an acquired Cousins coming from Arizona, who kind of set the market for this wide receiver in the offseason, and you see what he's been doing. You get a Marvin Jones, and Marvin Jones has been playing nothing but bully ball, but at the wide receiver position as well. And you just got a quarterback who's super confident. You get a defense, and all they want to do is just smack you in the face. They've been playing real physical on that defensive side. So, yeah, it scares me. I think the Detroit Lions, if they would have made the playoffs, they would have been the scariest team in the NFC. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars is the scariest team right now in the AFC.
Interesting. Yeah, just in terms of the momentum, Mike, I hear what you're saying. In terms of matchups, though, I will go, it's tough. Weeks ago, I would have said Dolphins against Bills because they played in the snow several weeks ago. And I know that there's really no such thing as a good loss, but I thought the Dolphins hung with the Bills in that game.
Right.
I'm going to go with the AFC North matchup, though, because Lamar Jackson, is he going to be back? How does he fare against Joe Burrow and company in Cincinnati? And is Joe Burrow going to try to be the hero who's been on the sidelines for weeks now? Is there rust? Are you going to put too much on Lamar Jackson to where then we're having the conversation of, Lamar Jackson and his playoff struggles yet again when he hasn't been healthy because of that knee injury? Oh, by the way, he's in a contract season too. So that, to me, that Sunday night matchup, Ravens and Bengals from an AFC standpoint, is the one I'm watching most closely.
Yeah, Joe just too cool. Joe Burrow and company just too cool. Going on, just keep week after week putting cigars in Joe Burrow's mouth because they're going to win it. That's all you need to do. When you want to talk about the defense for the Cincinnati Bengals, they don't get enough praise on how they come up with turnovers and when they need a big play for Joe Burrow to give Joe Burrow back the ball. We all know what Jamar Chase can do. Now you see with a hurt Joe Mixon what P-Ron can do. So you got a good 1-2 punch on their running back room. But man, they probably got the best trio when it comes down to the wide receiver between T, Boyd, and Jamar Chase, and you just so happen to have a stud at that quarterback position. It's going to be hard beating the Cincinnati Bengals, so I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. And then in the NFC, the most intriguing matchup to me, Dallas against Tampa Bay. And I just don't know what to expect because if I just watch and I'm not looking at the uniforms or anything, Dallas, to me, from a defensive standpoint, has been able to control the flow, led by Micah Parsons and company. But they lose in the final week of the season. Dak did not look particularly sharp in week 18. And as bad as the Bucs have been, they kind of seem to start to figure some things out with the deep balls and that connection between Tom Brady and Mike Evans, who, by the way, has yet another 1,000-yard season. And if he keeps this up for another 2-3 seasons, it might be crazy to say this, but Mike Evans is probably a Hall of Fame player because of his consistency year after year after year after year after year after year. And this goes back to all the way when Johnny Football was doing his thing at Texas A&M. Who was his receiver? It was Mike Evans, Ike. And regardless of who his quarterback is, you can go on and write 1,000 yards down on the stat sheet. And I think they might have started to figure some things out. They're going to be at home as well. And this is a Cowboys franchise that has not made the NFC Championship since 1995, the mid-90s, Ike. So this, to me, it's like, is this a new Cowboys team? And we talk about this every year. I think I'm going to go with the Bucs, but this is why this is my most intriguing NFC matchup in the wild card weekend.
It's just hard to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because you know what? He just proved you wrong every year. You know, it's tough. Talent wise, roster wise, yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. Probably the most talent with the most inconsistency is the Dallas Cowboys. And Mark, you just said it best. They figuring it out now, the Tampa Bay Bucs. And oh boy, when you get Tom Brady and company figuring out towards the season heading to the playoffs, it's going to be an old boy situation. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay on this one because I just can't bet against Tom in the playoffs. And the Dallas Cowboys just been too inconsistent throughout the course of the regular season.
Absolutely, Ike. So that gets underway Saturday, 3 days of playoff football. I cannot wait. And I'm going to say this too. I still think it's going to be the Bills and Eagles in the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are up there as well. I like the Chiefs a lot. Those are my 3 teams that I think will go the furthest. And I think it's those 3 teams and then everyone else. That's just my opinion, Ike. But I can't wait to see how all of this unfolds because, like, even Minnesota, and we talked about the Vikings weeks ago, I think they could go on a run because they have a player like a Justin Jefferson who can just go off in the playoffs, kind of like we've seen with Jamar Chase, like we saw years ago with Larry Fitzgerald, where you have one dynamic player who's able to carry a team and make plays downfield. I think Jefferson's that guy for the Vikings. Now, I think that the NFC Championship is the Vikings' ceiling, but I could be wrong. And so it's like each of these teams have players that they could go on a run, and you could really sell yourself on some of these narratives that may or may not exist. But for me right now, the 3 teams that I think that will go the furthest, Bills, Chiefs in the AFC, and I still think it's the Eagles in the NFC, and I think there's everyone else. We'll see how all of this shakes out starting Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a weekend. A heck of a weekend football, playoff football. Ain't nothing like playoff football. Ain't nothing like it's a different temperature. Preseason, the water kind of cold. Regular season is lukewarm. Playoff is hot as a mother. It's scorching hot. It's really win or go home. That's what I love about the NFL, man. It's no such thing as a series. It's an assassin kind of mentality. You get one shot. You get one shot. You got one bullet in the chamber, and you get one shot, and we got to go out and win this ball game. And guys are playing at a different tempo. Practices are at a different tempo. Guys are locked and wired in, especially for them guys who want to make it to the Super Bowl. And Josh Allen said it throughout the course of this week in one of his meetings. He said, I'm getting tired of wearing these hats. That man wants some hardware. So like you say earlier in our show, he's inspired for sure. I think that whole team is inspired. And I think they really do have a chance. But they're going to have to go against that AFC North beast. And that's Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow ain't scared of nobody. Just ask the Kansas City Chiefs. He ain't scared of nobody. Put Joe Burrow, to me, is becoming the Tom Brady in the playoffs. Put that man in any situation. Watch how cool and calm and collective he will have everybody around him. And they feed off that young man.
Ike, that's very high praise. We've got 2 final segments, and we'll go quick. We were talking more about the draft earlier in the show. Obviously, Steelers have the number 17th pick. But the 32nd pick from the Bears, which is almost like a de facto first-rounder, because remember, the Dolphins don't have their first-round pick due to tampering. It's like a late first-round pick in the Chase Claypool trade because the Bears have the first overall pick, Ike. I applaud Omar Khan and company in this front office because you almost get 2 first-round picks now. And oh, by the way, the Steelers still have the 48th pick, which is their second-round pick, and the 80th pick as well. So the Steelers are positioned to do whatever they need to do to say, let's draft best available player at that slot, or they're in a position to where they could trade some of these picks to trade up if they really like a guy that can help this team moving forward. I like the flexibility. Personally, I know you go, Ike, and I always say best available. I would go offensive line, cornerback, and defensive tackle. Those are the three positions I would address in this upcoming draft. But I'm very excited as we get into the offseason, Ike. I love talking draft. I love talking coaching carousel, and I love talking quarterback carousel as well. I am just so excited because we got playoffs, and then we've got all of this offseason drama because once it starts, Ike, it's like dominoes.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you get 3 picks in the top 50 for this draft. That's hard to do. So basically, you can possibly have 3 franchise players in this draft, depending on what you go for in these picks. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Omar and company, organization, appreciate you bringing it. I'm going to go on to manifest this. A great guru, Ike Taylor as a scout, and I will be helping as much as I can on helping the Pittsburgh Steelers try to get 3 franchise players in the top 50 picks.
Let's go, Ike. Let's go. I am fired up, and we're going to finish out today's show. I'm going to give you your flowers. Week 18 observations. You tried to tell me about the Lions, and running back Jamal Williams' post-game interview was awesome because we had the full gambit of emotions. We had him crying about his late great-grandfather, and then he's talking about how he's got the dog in him and what a great season he had. I think he had like 17 rushing touchdowns. You tried to tell me about the Lions, Ike, week after week after week after week. They fell just short of the playoffs, which I told you was going to happen, but they take care of business and eliminate the Green Bay Packers in a game that the Lions knew going into the game that they were already eliminated from the postseason, and they're able to knock Aaron Rodgers out. Ike, I got to give you your flowers, and I'm fired up this morning.
Appreciate it. You got to give it to the head coach for the Detroit Lions. We say players take on their coach's personality, and they just some mean son of a guns, and they're going to fight to the last play. That's exactly what they're going to do. And they're going to play physical as hell. And Detroit Lions, don't forget, they're young. They're a young team, a real young team. And then you got guys like Jamal Williams, and he's just Brutus just keep knocking this thing.
Brutus wants to get a cameo on the Bleav in Steelers show. That is Ike's dog, ladies and gentlemen.
But just Detroit, man, I thought they would have been the scariest if they were to make the playoffs team to play, because you can just see they don't pick a time and a place. That's the Detroit Lions motto. We don't care whether we playing football on concrete, turf, or grass. Just give us a time and a place, and we're going to wind up winning this goddamn ball game. So, yeah, they're going to be real good next year. Mm-hmm. And Jared Goff did go to a Super Bowl. I know it was a while ago, but that Super Bowl they played against the New England Patriots, Tom didn't play a good game. Jared Goff didn't play a good game. That defense won that Super Bowl. The New England defense won that Super Bowl. So, yeah, Jared Goff, he got drafted in the first round. He has been playing like a franchise quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And between him and St. Brown and company as a wide receiver, them Detroit Lions, all they've been doing is just kicking ass.
Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, and the two-headed monster in the backfield. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, for how much you like the Lions, at one point, this is going to happen. This will happen where a 7 seed goes on a Super Bowl run and wins the Super Bowl. I don't know when it will happen, but it will happen. Like, do you think had the Lions gotten in that they would have gone on a run? I'm not saying they would have won the Super Bowl, but
no. They was on a roll. I mean, you look at the Lions between Swift came back from his injury. Jamal Williams, all he is a touchdown king. You put him anywhere in the end zone, he's gonna find a way to get in the end zone. And Penei Sewell, man, he's the personality of his coach. Hey, let's eat nails, let's drink beer, and let's fight everybody. That's the personality. That's the personality of the Detroit Lions.
Ike, tell Brutus hello. You're the absolute best. I want to thank you, the Bleav Network, our video producers over at Brinks TV, led by John Brinkus, Courtney Vargas, Herbert Diaz, producer Yincy, if I'm missing anyone else. Thank you for your help behind the scenes for making Ike and I look good. Today's sponsor of the Bleav in Steelers show, betonline.ag. They'll take care of your gambling needs all NFL playoffs long. And I want to thank the listeners and the viewers. We start to wrap up our 4th season together. Time has flown by. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we're just going to keep doing it bigger and better year after year after year. 2022 is our best season on the show, and I want to thank all the listeners and viewers, because without your support, we don't get high quality guests as well here on the show to give you insight, analysis, and entertainment that Ike, in my opinion, is the best of the best.
Got to thank BetOnline.ag for rocking with us since day one. Bring CV for making us look good. Bleav in podcast for rolling with us. Got to thank my dog Mark just for really sticking with me. That's brother to me. Everybody, I want to thank everybody for just tuning in. Make sure y'all subscribe to Mark and I and this Bleav in podcast, Bleav in Steelers podcast. Please give us a 5-star rating, because we do feel like we're 1 out of 5, which is the highest star you can get. So just want to appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening to us talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL as well.
For Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you so much for watching the Bleav in Steelers show. Enjoy playoff football. We'll talk to you here in the coming days. Really excited about the playoffs. We'll talk to you next time. Until then, take care. And so long, everybody.
Peace.